Can you trust your coworkers? This comes up all the time in the comments, and I see so many of you making this major mistake when it comes to trust at work. So today I want to talk to you about trust in the workplace, and should you trust your coworkers, and how much should you trust your coworkers? So get yourself a coffee. We are going to have a chat. Hello, my friend. I am so happy you are here to chat with me today. In case we haven't met yet, welcome. My name is Jennifer Brick, and I am your new career bestie. Around here, we talk about career success, navigating toxic workplaces, dealing with difficult coworkers, and the like. If you're like, yes, I need this in my life, tap the subscription button and the notification bell. I release 2 new videos each week. Also, I'm on LinkedIn every day, and I'm trying to hang out on Instagram more, even though I kind of hate it. If you want to hang with me in either or both of those places, the links are in the description bar down below. So trust in the workplace is very important, and you need to have some level of trust. So what I want to do today is just explore this. I know this is something that a lot of my clients have been facing, and I know from our conversations in the comments, it's something a lot of you have been facing as well. So let's start with the first fundamental question. Have your coworkers done anything to make you mistrust them? A ton of you have found me through my video called Coworkers Are Not Your Friends. And when I read through the comments on that video, I know that a lot of this distrust is because you have been in a toxic work situation, or because you have been burned by a coworker or coworkers in the past. And really, we need to understand where that distrust is coming from. Now, if you have been burned in the past, it is totally fair for you to have that wound. However, what I don't want for you is to be like walking around with that wound open and festering, and that is such a gross mental image, and I'm kind of sorry that I gave it to you. But if it encourages you to want to do something about it, then I'm okay with having just said that. Okay, that was a big rant. Being burned once at work does not mean that that is going to be your existence forevermore, unless you think it is. But I'm going to come back to that, so let's put a pin in it for now. But first, I want to speak to the different avenues of trust. Is that the word? I'm not sure if that's the right word, but there's different groups and individuals that we need to consider having a trusting relationship with. So let's start at the micro level. Do you trust your individual coworkers? So if you're talking to Bob in accounting, do you trust Bob in accounting kind of deal? And this is where I find a lot of people struggle, especially when they have had a malicious or toxic coworker who has caused harm in their career in the past. However, this also can be a little bit bigger. It can be having mistrust in your team. So all of the coworkers that you work with or anyone that you interface with. And this is where you have had maybe some more generalized issues in the past that have caused you to lose that trust with your team or with your coworkers collectively. Also, another situation that I want you to consider as you're figuring out where is this lack of trust coming from, it can also be in situations such as, do you mistrust your coworkers in private conversations or in team meetings? Is there a specific time that this is actually coming up for you? Then we are going to move into the next point of discussion, which this is a juicy one. If you cannot trust your coworkers, if you have zero trust established, no one is going to trust you. And that in itself is going to bring about situations that just reinforce your lack of trust. Because when you don't trust someone, it's because underneath it, you feel like they are going to betray you. They are going to steal your ideas. They are going to gossip about you. They are going to share your private disclosures to them. And if you think people are going to treat you like that, trust me, people pick up on things, and they are going to have those very same suspicions about you. And that fracture in trust is actually going to be the exact thing that manifests a lot of these really annoying situations and toxic work situations. And that is going to then reinforce your lack of trust. And actually, let me ask you this question. Do you feel like you are trustworthy? So if your coworker told you something in confidence, shared with you an idea or something that they were working on that not everyone knew about yet, would you honor it? Would you steal it? Would you tell everyone? Let me know in the comments down below. Honestly, there's no judgments here. I just want to know where you're at. Because I think that most of you do feel like you are trustworthy, because I think most of you are trustworthy individuals. Let's face it, the most awesome people on the internet hang around here. Now, another element here that we need to think about when there is a lack of trust is that trust is also connected with likability. So if you do not trust any of your coworkers, you probably don't like any of your coworkers. and that is going to reverse it to be true as well. Now, I don't think that everyone has to like you. I think that that is not a good expectation to set for yourself, but in general, you should have positive and productive relationships with your coworkers, with your managers, with the general people that you work with. And there is an element of likability that comes into that. Now, in my opinion, and let me know yours because I'm very curious where you stand here, I think that if someone does not trust you, or if they feel like you don't trust them, that is going to be a situation where the likability is really going to be hurt. I don't think that you can like a person that you don't trust, at least not a lot. And that actually brings me to a very important point. And in fact, it's my next point that I wanted to discuss with you as we explore this concept of should you trust your coworkers, and that is the level of trust that you have for your coworkers. Trust is not a zero-sum game. It is not, I have trust, I will trust you with my life, I will tell you anything, here is my first child. Like, that's probably not realistic for every single person in your life. Now, is it possible to have that? Yes, I believe so. Just as much as it's possible to have the other side of that where you have zero trust, you feel like they're going to throw you under a bus and in turn you're throwing them under buses yourself and everything like that. There's a scale here. There's not just these two binaries that exist. So when you think about trusting your coworkers, and especially if you have had a bad situation at work or a toxic work environment that has fractured the trust that you have for your coworkers, or even just trust for people at work or within the workplace, this is something that I want you to think about, because you can have incremental trust. And this is actually something that we're working on in my Toxic Job Detox program, because we need to incrementally build up trust. So what that means is that you don't have to trust your coworkers with all of the things, your deepest, darkest secrets and everything like that. Ask yourself a few fundamental questions. Do I trust my coworkers to do their job? Do I trust my coworkers to respect my boundaries? Do I trust my coworkers to contribute and collaborate with me when necessary? These kinds of things are going to help you understand the level of trust that you have. At a fundamental level, the level of trust that I think is required with your coworkers and in the workplace is that you trust each other to do your job and to contribute and things like that. Now, you might eventually develop the relationship with some coworkers or with some individuals that you work with where you have more trust. So I don't just trust you to do your job, I trust you to talk a little bit about my personal life. Or I trust you to water my plants when I'm out of town on a business trip or on vacation. Or maybe that person ends up becoming one of your best lifelong friends. You don't know, but there's these scales to it, and they don't always have to start at this extreme high trust level. They can start at these lower fundamental trust levels. Now, if you are someone who is struggling to trust your coworkers, what you can do is that you can focus on those smaller levels of trust and work your way up to the bigger things. Again, they don't need to have house keys to your apartment and the password to your alarm system. Not necessary, but think about just having the level of trust that you need in order for you to have that positive and productive relationship that I talked about. I know that dripping out even low levels of trust can be very, very difficult and very uncomfortable, especially if you are coming out of a toxic work situation where trust has been significantly fractured. You need to begin healing it. It's not necessarily going to be comfortable, but what is going to happen, especially once you have escaped that toxic work environment or that bad coworker relationship, whatever it is that as you begin to invest trust in other people, they're going to live up to those expectations. I truly believe that people will live up to your expectations or down to the expectations. So let's start to raise the bar. Now, you can do it in these little tiny ways. And what's going to end up happening is that this is going to give your brain evidence that people can be trusted at work. And also, it's going to help disarm the reaction that you have developed because of the experience that you had in the workplace where it doesn't sense danger. Because really where this lack of trust is, it's a protective reflex. Your brain is going into perceived danger mode and it's setting off your fight, flight, or freeze. And it's just an emotional reaction. And because you've had that real experience of broken trust, fractured trust, it's setting off all the time now. So the more that you exercise trust, the more that response is going to be deactivated, and the more natural trusting coworkers is going to come to you. And actually, I want to dive a little bit more into what that positive and productive working relationship is and what I mean when I say it, because I think that this is something that gets misconstrued as you have to be friends with your coworkers and you have to, be besties with your colleagues. And that's not the case at all. Like, you guys know my stance here at this point, hopefully. And honestly, this probably should be a whole video, but I just want to qualify what I mean when I make reference to a positive and productive relationship. One of the things that I use to describe a positive relationship with a coworker, focusing on that side first, is that when it comes to performance review time, are you going to get slammed for being difficult to work with, for being the difficult coworker, or are you going to get positive feedback from your coworkers? Now, there's again that general sense of likability. People don't mind working with you at minimum. Ideally, they actually like working with you because that's really going to be the thing that helps you in your career success journey most of all. Think of it this way. Would you rather be the person that in general most people respect and like working with, or would you rather be the nightmare coworker? I don't think you want to be the nightmare coworker. I don't think that's why you're here. Now, the productive side means that you can effectively work with people to get outcomes and get results. You can collaborate with your coworkers effectively. You're sharing information. You have good communications with people so that you're not an obstacle getting in the way of great work. And also, I just want to mention, in case you're interested, because you've been in a toxic work situation and that you're really struggling to rebuild trust and confidence with yourself and other people, that is something that we really dive into in my Toxic Job Detox program. The next cohort is going to run probably in September. If you want to get on the wait list, I'll leave the link down below. There's one thing that we absolutely need to discuss when it comes to trust in the workplace, and if you should or if you can trust your coworkers, and that is obviously evaluating your current situation. In no way am I going to encourage you to trust people that have proven themselves to be untrustworthy, whether that is not trusting your coworker, not trusting your boss, or not trusting someone else that you work with. And especially if you are in a toxic work situation where there is zero trust established, you just can't give it to people endlessly. Once someone has burned you, you need to make sure that you set boundaries to make sure that it doesn't happen again. Whether that is having boundaries to not share information about your personal life, what you're doing at the weekend, what you're buying, if people are like all over there gossiping about it or whatever. And it also means setting boundaries in terms of the information that you're sharing with coworkers if they're doing something like stealing your ideas. And really, these are all hallmarks of a toxic work environment if this is something that is prevalent on your team or at your organization. And if you suspect that that might be the case, knowing if you are in a toxic work environment is so important. In fact, I want you to go and watch this video right now if you think that might be the case, to help you get clarity on if you are in a toxic work situation that you need to leave. But before you go, if this video helped you think about trusting your coworkers and how you approach trust in the workplace, let me know by tapping that like button. It really, really helps my channel and it makes you my favorite career bestie. So it's a win-win situation. As always, my friend, thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next video. Bye for now.